Yeah. Well, if you press the right buttons, Tone.
Welcome to Fix It.
I don't know. I don't know how to do that stuff either. I don't ever go
The current
Facebook
real estate
Live.
market is ripe for rehabbing. If you want to learn how to buy the right property at the right price and learn how to project and control costs, then you've come to the right place. Our host, Tony Raffin, is from the #1 Rematch team in southeastern Michigan, and Kevin McClellan is Mr. Flipper Extraordinaire. Now, let's welcome Tony and Kevin.
3,
This is Fix It
2,
and Flip
1.
Stop it. I'm watching us live on Facebook
you
Live.
got your phone out again, man. Put it away.
I'm watching us live on Facebook Live.
We're hearing the
I
feedback.
turned the volume down, though.
All right. No, I turned it off.
I can't take them anywhere. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those days. You guys,
How's your week going, Tom?
It's going good so far. I've been busy as hell. I can tell you this.
That's good. It's time of year.
It's that time of year. People say, when is the best time to buy? When is the best time to sell? Sorry, I'm losing my microphone here. When is the best time to buy? When is the best time to sell? It really doesn't matter. All matters is where you're at in the curve. Sometimes you'll buy at the bottom. Sometimes you'll buy at the top. But as long as you're flipping, you're not holding, it really doesn't matter, or vice versa. Like,
Yeah.
you have two different type of deals that you do. You have the, what do you call it?
We'll get Tony situated here. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
I'm sorry you guys are watching this. I feel like a handicapped person. I'm not really good at this. No, you have different reasons to buy and different reasons to sell. So when you're flipping a house, you can buy in a bad market and you'll still sell in a bad market.
Yeah.
If you're buying in a high market, you'll still sell in a high market, so you'll be fine. But if you're buying to hold and you buy at the top of the market, the value could go down, but as long as the money that you're generating from rent stays, you're okay. But if you take a year to do a flip, which we know some people that take 1 year to flip a house,
If not longer, yeah.
if not longer, you better be buying in the beginning of that uptrend, and then this way the value is going to go up just simply by holding it.
Yeah, as long as you're on that same plane of going up, then it doesn't matter if you're here, if it's continuing on that up curve. If you hit the peak and it starts going down and you're in that holding pattern of the renovation, it's taking too long.
Right.
There's issues, permits, this, that, and the other.
Well, you've got one property you're working on now. It's $1 million property.
Yeah.
You bought it how long ago?
About 6-7 months ago.
Okay. Most people working on $1 million plus property are taking longer than 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
That's a good year renovation minimum.
Yeah, I mean, it's an 8,000 square foot house. So, I mean, if it takes 2 months, 3 months to do a 1,200 square foot house, yeah, you can only imagine how long that's taken.
In the coming weeks, we're going to have a friend of mine on who is redoing a multi-million-dollar property in L.A., and he's going to show you that it doesn't matter whether you're in Michigan, Florida, New York. It really isn't going to make a difference to you. It's going to make a difference where the market is. Now, California, even though here in Michigan, that's where we're based out of, we've never seen a downturn except back in 2007, 8, 9.
Yeah, 9.
That was our only downturn we ever had.
Right.
We've never had a downturn here. It's never, ever, ever gone down. But you go to California, and they had downturns 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Every time there's a downturn, there's an opportunity for somebody to make money. When everybody says the Depression was so bad, well, the Depression really wasn't that bad for the rich people because the rich people got richer.
Yeah, I mean, when there's blood in the streets, that's usually when they make money, right?
Yeah.
When you're liquid and you have the cash available to buy the properties when everybody else is losing them, and you can sit and hold. I mean, looking at what these property values have done, I was just talking to my buddy that's invested in this area from out of state. He's been in town, so we've had quite a few dinners and chatted about real estate and whatnot. And we were just talking the other day about how nobody realized that the values were going to shoot up as quick as they did. And if you could have just bought properties 5 years ago and literally sat on them, paid the taxes, and cut the grass, and done nothing to them, you would double or probably even triple your money at this point in most areas.
Yeah, all you had to do was just winterize them.
Yeah.
And cut the
You could
grass.
have just sat on them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, right? We didn't know that we were gonna. I don't know. You've been in the business, and you've been a realtor, for a while. I don't think we knew it was gonna shoot back to pre-2006.
They're
5 and
higher
6
than
months.
those
They're
levels.
higher now.
But what's really funny is certain properties are higher, not all. When you go back to it, I remember I was talking to a guy, and a Jewish friend of mine, and I said, "What kind of business can I get into?" He goes, "Get into basic human needs." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, basic human needs: roof, food, transportation.
Yep.
He goes, don't get into other type of things, because when you get into other type of things, they could be cyclical. But at the end of the day, even though housing is cyclical, people still have to have houses. They have to live in a house. They have to eat food. They have to have clothes. They've got to have heat.
Yeah, all the basic necessities.
All the basic necessities.
Every single person on a daily basis needs those things.
Correct.
And the population is only increasing. So that's the other thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can't build the new houses fast enough. So people need these existing homes, and they want them renovated. So I think going back to your point of what you're getting at is you want to enter and exit the property as quickly as you can in any market. If you do that and you do that quick enough, you can't. It's hard to get hurt.
Correct.
Right? If you bought the property right, let's say you bought it right, but you didn't know the market was going to take a downturn. You didn't know there was going to be some type of recession, housing bust, credit crisis like we had back in 2006, 7, 8. As long as you're in and out of it quick, and that's where coming down to wholesaling, a lot of people have gotten into that I've noticed. Even a lot of guys and a lot of buddies that I knew that were flipping, they decided just to get into a wholesale game. They didn't even want to hold the property for 2-3 months.
You've
done it. Yeah, you've done
I
it
got
properties.
one. I got one in the next couple days that we're closing on. I literally paid $6,000 for it, flipped it for $30,000. I'm like, okay, well, I could take this property and I could put $25,000 into it. Then I got $31,000
Right.
into it, and I'll sell it for $60,000. Okay, there's 29 profit. I mean, gross. Forget
Yeah.
the expenses.
Yeah.
Or I could unload it, do nothing, and in 30 minutes have $24,000.
Yeah, I mean, on a typical wholesale deal, you're obviously probably, it's not always, you're probably, the chances are you're not going to make as much as if
No.
you renovated it yourself. Although there's times where people get into a full renovation and go overboard and overspend and too many problems, and they're better off.
Had
probably
one like that today.
they're-
Got closed today.
Yeah,
Same thing.
They're probably better off just wholesaling it.
Well, that was actually, it was a deal like you had.
Yeah.
You're busy, so if you've got 5 or 6 flips going on, which most people that are getting in this industry, listen, you didn't start with 5 or 6 at a
it's
time.
one at a time.
One at a time.
One at a time. That one had to sell, and line up the next one.
Yeah,
I mean, we had it where we were closing on
one, and the next
one,
day
and
buying the
day,
next
or
one.
the same day wiring the funds and buying the next one.
Right.
So you can only do 2 or 3 a year.
Right,
You know?
but you take that into consideration, and then you've got 5 or 6 deals, and you have to prioritize your deals. So you didn't want to throw away a deal because you thought there was some money into it, but then again, at the same time, you didn't want to take and let it disappear. So it's like, all right, I'm going to keep this deal, but now let me analyze the 6 houses I got right now. You know what? I'll wholesale this one off. You'll make $3,000 or $4,000 just giving it to somebody else.
Yeah, like-
for your trouble.
Like any investing, you're going to look at your highest margin option.
Correct.
And you're going to run with that with your resources available, because a lot of it too comes down to resources available. It comes down to funds available. It comes down to your workers being able to do the work, right? I mean, those are the 2 main components of coming up with the money and finding the guys to do the work after you've already identified and got the property. So at that point, I mean, you look at your highest margin one, and you're going to put your time and resources into that one. If you got one that's a fringe one that you can tack on some money and wholesale to somebody that's looking for a project,
Right.
and you still leave enough meat on
Yeah,
the bone.
you're starting on you got your $1 million home. When you flip that, you're going to make, let's say you make 20% on that,
Yeah.
which you may even make more. You
Yeah.
never know. It depends. So let's say you're going to make $200,000 on that house, or you're going to make $10,000 on a flip in a different area.
Right.
You get rid of the $10,000 flip. You take $2,000 or $3,000 just because holding money,
Yeah.
whatever it goes,
Yeah.
and then you move on. So with that said, why don't we talk about the
Let's talk about these wholesalers, these wholesale deals.
Yeah.
And assignable contracts and making money with no money. That seems to be all the rage as of late. All these TV shows and then these guys that once they got their name out there went and did all these seminars and getting 500 people in a room and telling them that they're all going to be millionaires and how easy it is, and you just go lock up properties.
Can I tell you a story about that?
Well, sure, please, and please do.
Well, there's a famous guy out there right now, and I'm not going to mention his name, but you guys have all seen him. He had a bunch of properties that he was doing, and the funny part about it is he borrowed the money from
AM.
AM.
That's who you're talking about, right? His initials.
Oh yeah, AM. Yeah.
It's too
okay.
early.
Yeah. Do you remember me telling you the story?
Yeah, I
then?
remember
All
you
right.
telling the story.
Okay, so this guy,
Come on, follow me, Tony.
This guy borrows $400,000 or $500,000 from a friend of mine, and he goes on TV and he starts showing everybody how they're going to make money, how they're going to do this. Oh, you're going to kill it, and then the show just, reality TV brings in this bullshit factor.
Yeah.
And he made all this money. Even I'm counting the money, and it's like, no way, that didn't happen. Hold on, this air conditioner got stolen, and it didn't cost anything to replace it. Yes, it did.
Right. Well, the numbers are never real on these
Numbers
TV
are never
shows.
real on TV. So at the end of the day, he's got, let's say his show was, he did four flips on his show. He bought all these flips with my friend's money. He never sold the houses. He pulled all the money out of them, borrowed all the money to do them, lost them to foreclosure. My buddy lost $500,000. And this guy is out there doing seminars right now, charging people $200,000, $500,000 to learn his tricks and secrets. There ain't no tricks and secrets to losing money. That's easy.
Anybody can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the TV shows give a false sense of legitimacy, right? Just because they're on TV, people think that they know what they're doing. These people are paying big money to go to some of these seminars. I talked to one guy that I won't name the name of the seminar, but him and his wife, who I know they don't have a lot of money, they scraped together and loaned money, $35,000 to go to one of these seminars.
Oh my God.
And they sold them on, a whole bill of goods and gave them certain key phrases about how to not pierce the corporate veil, and we're going to get you your LLC in Nevada because it's harder to pierce the corporate veil there, and we're going to set you up for success that way, and your kids are going to have all this money because you're going to pass down, the longevity to them of the passive income, and they gave them all these key words so they felt like they knew. And at the end of the day, I said,
They spent $35,000 for a training seminar?
I said, when are you buying your first house? I said, that's all great. I said, when are you going to start making money? I said, I could have taken that $35,000 and give you a $5,000, $10,000 return if I invested it for you. Or you could have went and bought your first rental home and started getting $800, $900 a month. And then you could have taken an equity line on it after it was seasoned for 6 months and went and bought another one.
I stopped at a buddy's house last night, and he's like, yeah, my daughter's making a lot of money right now. And, I'd love for her to get into investing and blah, blah, blah. And she wants to buy a boat. And I'm like, oh, my God, these kids today, they're messed up. They want to be entrepreneurs, but they have no clue what they want to do. And
I don't know why they don't realize that you have to have two things. You got to have some cash, and you got to have lending ability.
Yes.
You got to have good credit, and you got to have some cash. I don't care if you have an 850, whatever the highest credit score is. If you walk into the bank and you have built up no credit, they're not gonna. They don't care who you are. They're not gonna lend you money. I mean, you really need an asset, an appreciable asset to loan against.
Yeah, you're not gonna borrow money against something.
This younger generation doesn't realize that yet. That you got to save your money. You got to sacrifice. Running around at the bar at 21 years old, acting like a big shot, buying shots for everybody, blowing $200 is probably the stupidest thing you can do. Buying a $10,000, $15,000 watch at the age of 22 is probably the stupidest thing you can do.
Smoking.
Think about
vaping, smoking. Not only is it bad for your health, it's bad for your pocketbook. Can you imagine how much? And I don't smoke, and you don't smoke, and I don't know many people that smoke. But what's a pack of cigarettes cost today, Jessica?
Like $7.25.
$7 for. I used to own a chain of tobacco stores, and we used to sell a lot of cigarettes, but they were like $2 a pack then. So $7.25 for a pack of cigarettes. That's 20 cigarettes. $7.25 for a pack of cigarettes. You smoke 2 packs a day. That's $15 a day.
It's $450 a month.
Dude, that's insane. That's a car payment. That's a house payment.
It's a house payment
for smoking.
Go find somebody to lend you the money, and that's your interest payment to them.
Like Gary Vee would say, and I don't know if anybody knows. I hope most people pay attention. Gary Vaynerchuk is
he's all over.
He's all over on social media, and he's all about focusing, and especially for millennials, you guys, you younger generation, or what they call Generation Z.
I don't know.
You guys got to understand that you got to buckle down for the first 10 years. And I remember my father saying the same thing. Hey, join the Army when you're 18 years old, and in 20 years, you'll be 38, and you'll have a full pension, and then you can go do whatever the hell you want. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not giving up 20 years. You're crazy.
Right.
And then I look at these people that are coming out of the military at 38 and 40 with a full pension and an education that somebody else paid for, and they still got money in the bank, and they still got everything they want. You got to buckle down. You got to stop buying the toys. You got to stop buying the crap. You got to be focused. You got to run this like a business.
Yeah.
This is a business. You have a budget. You have to look for the long-term vision. Nobody opens a business for short-term vision.
Well, how about reinvesting that capital and that profit, like you said, running it like a business? if you go and flip a property, here's what I could have done when I started 7 years ago. I flipped my first property and made $15,000 in like 2 months. Now, I could have went out and bought that Rolex watch, right?
Right.
And act like a big shot, but I like $20 watches and like, you know.
I don't even carry a
Jeans
watch.
and a-
anymore.
jeans and a
I have a
t-shirt,
Rolex. When
you
I sold my chain of tobacco stores back in 1999, I bought a Rolex.
Yeah.
I still have it to this day.
Yeah.
I don't wear it.
Right.
I very rarely wear it. It's a wedding watch, a date night watch, something. Very rarely. I wear it because my wife's, I put it on. It looks
Yeah.
nice. Okay, great. In the meantime, it sits on a watch winder doing nothing, devaluing.
So you do whatever your wife tells you to do?
I'm going to have to from now. Yeah. Put it this way: you spend $13,000 on something in 1999. I could have bought a house
Yeah.
and take that.
Well, so the property values were so depressed back in 2010 and 11. I flipped that, made that 15,000. I didn't take it and go buy a car, go buy this, or take a trip to Monaco or wherever for $8,000. I went and bought a house for $12,000 in East Point. That house is now worth $75,000. So
and it's paying you a dividend
and
every
it's
month.
paying me $900 a month for the last 6 years, 7 years. And I loaned against it. And I went and took an equity line for $30,000 against it. So at the time, I went and bought 2 more of those properties.
So that's because this is really how you started.
Yeah,
And people need to know that you don't have to be rich to start in this industry.
Nope.
You really don't. You
Nope.
can have a credit card. You can bang a credit card for a zero down cash advance. Don't quit your day job. Make sure that you make your payments and you put your sweat equity into it. I mean, did you hire contractors from the start or did you do a lot of stuff yourself?
no, I did. I mean, most of the stuff was done from the start. I mean, if it was super skilled stuff that I didn't know, I'm not an electrician, I'm not a
Right.
plumber, right? But at that time, then you get really resourceful. It's like anybody starting a business, like you said, to look at the real estate. If you want to get into house flipping, you look at it as business. It'd be no different if you were going to start a restaurant, if you're going to open up a cell phone store. You tap into the resources that you have. You reach out for favors, right? I mean, when people go and start a business, you call your friends and family. You tell them to come and give you business. I mean, that's
Right.
the point of everybody's supposed to help everybody out. So you do what you can. I've ran into way too many guys recently that want to get into their first couple flips and they want to hire everything out. And I'm like, why aren't you doing the mud work? Why aren't you painting? Anybody can tape and paint.
Right.
Why aren't you sanding the floors? You can rent a sander and sand the floors. Hang the cabinets.
Do
Grab
it-
your uncle, grab your dad, grab your brother, grab the coworker.
Right.
Tap into all these resources. And if you can save yourself $5,000 in labor, it makes your profit in your return, your ROI, that much
Or,
bigger.
well, like I say, sweat equity.
Sweat equity.
Yeah, if you've got spare time, instead of going to the bar, instead of going to the club,
Yeah.
instead of fooling around, put it into your house, and then that's extra money you've got to work with for the next deal. So you took a house, you bought it for $15,000, you fixed it up, and you borrowed against it.
Right.
So you bought another house with that money?
Yep.
So then you had 2 houses.
Yep.
So you had 2 houses paying you income now,
Yep.
and then you borrowed against the second
Yeah.
house, and then you bought another
Did
house.
that 5 times. Yeah.
So you borrowed
Yeah.
5 times,
Yeah.
and now you got 5 houses,
Right.
generating you roughly $5,000 a month in
Yeah.
income.
4 to 5. Yeah. Yep.
And you started with 15.
And then
grand.
that money, again, I didn't take that money and go blow it and live like a big shot. I took that to pay my guys. So now $1,000 to the plumber. Well, I had 4 or 5,000 coming in a rental income.
Right.
That paid labor for my next flip. So all it was just rolling it back in, just that snowball rolling downhill.
So you've been rolling
trying to-
for 7 years.
7
You've
years.
been rolling.
I've barely taken any money. I've barely taken any profit or money from any short-term or long-term capital gain, and really spend it on anything much. Than really rolling it back in and trying to go from, I mean, like you said, it was 1 house the first year, then 3, then 5, then 9, then 15, now 20 houses a year, because you need that capital. I mean,
And you know what's
need
really,
that cash.
really funny? People, you guys listening to this show are going to freak out. Kevin does not own his own home that he lives in.
No.
Now, you're going to say, why is that? So I'm going to go bring you back. And I think what everybody does is pretty much regurgitates what other people say, but put it in a context that somebody can pay attention to. Robert Kiyosaki was probably the most genius person that I have ever listened to, even though he says the same things that other people say, but he makes you realize, he says it in
He says it a different way, his own way.
in 5th grade language.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. You want to buy that Porsche? No problem. Go buy a couple houses that generate you $2,000-$3,000 a month in rent, and then let the houses pay the payment for the Porsche.
Right.
So he has a game now out called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the game. It's like a Monopoly game.
I've heard of the book. I never read it, but
The book is great. He's got 4 different books. But the game is played with a profit and loss statement. You buy something, and the whole idea is not to work for your money. Let your money work for you. Because anybody can work for money. I mean, you can go to McDonald's and make a living.
Right.
I mean, you may not live the way you want to live, but at the end of the day, your money needs to work for you. You not work for it. And the best way a layman can do it, and we're not talking stock market here. Literally, I've bought in stocks, and I'm a real estate agent, and that's foolish. And I'm telling you right now, every time I've done it, it's turned out to be bad.
yeah.
Overnight, your value can drop. You're not in control of what's going on in New York, but the real estate market, the housing market has never dropped at that exaggerated pace. It's a slow downward or slow upward.
Yeah, I mean, or for such frivolous reasons. The president says something and it drops 300 points.
Right. That's
come on. I mean, come on. You want your money in control that volatile? That doesn't happen in real estate. It takes big shifts in economic factors
and lots of time
before you have a big dip in the value of your home and that asset that you've acquired. So I've stayed out of the stock market. I don't know enough about it. I'm a big believer in know what you know and know what you don't know.
Yeah. So
you like dabbling in it. I mean,
I don't even dabble in it anymore. I lost a ton of money on great companies, and it's like, why? It's like, what am I doing? I could have taken this $200,000 and put it into a couple properties that continue to generate me money. At this point right now, I have 2 rentals. I have my office building and a little rental house that generates me huge profits.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I don't have to pay for my vacation. The rental house will pay for the vacation.
Right.
But
it just
but
goes
in the
back to what you're
meantime, the renter, the tenant, is paying for my assets. Where I'm going back to you not owning a house.
right.
Why do you pay somebody rent when you could own the house?
Well, for me, it was not wanting to tie up my lending ability or affect my debt to income ratio. This all goes back to when I first started. I kind of had my own little master plan, and I wanted to leverage every asset as much as I could. And be able to loan as much as I could.
Yeah, because if you borrowed $100,000 to buy your condo, which is probably worth more,
yeah,
and your payment wouldn't be what you're paying rent, it would be
back then. I was afraid if I went and bought that condo, not having a ton of assets or passive income at the time, then I went to go get equity lines in my rental properties. They might have said, no, it's called your DTI, your debt to income ratio. Banks like it around 52% or less of your expenses in relation to your income. I was afraid that would hinder me from getting additional funds to go and flip properties and buy more.
So instead of holding on to your property with a $100,000 loan, you let that $100,000 loan be out somewhere else.
Exactly.
Not affecting your borrowing
to pay
ability.
$1,000 a month in rent was way more beneficial or cost-wise beneficial to be able to get that money from the bank on my rental properties and go and flip properties because I knew the return that I would make on that money
was higher
so
than the
so
one
all
you
it
were
was
living in.
looking at the return and percentages and what's more advantageous in terms of investing. So for me it was a little different. Now if I had no visions of investing or buying rental properties or flipping properties, then yeah, absolutely I should have bought it back then. But there's plenty of studies and books and things on whether renting is the way to go, whether you should ever buy a property for a primary residence. I'm sure you've read the same things.
I mean,
it's different strokes for different folks.
I think I'm just old school because of the way my father said it. You got to own your home. Own the home.
But see, a lot of people were just told that and taught that.
Correct. For no reason why.
And if you can hold that asset and hold that home for a 15 to 20 year period, you should make money on it. You should be okay.
I did.
Yeah.
I did through thick and thin. Even though the values went down, I didn't sell because I needed a place to live. And now that the value's back up, it's high. So what are you going to do? You could take the money out, which actually my house is for sale today, and we could take the money out, use it, and buy 4 different homes, and that'll be a rental income instead of that payment, and then live in another house or downgrade, or I don't say downgrade, but downsize. Because there's I don't need a big house anymore. You downsize, and then you
things change in life. What you want at one minute might not be the next. I mean,
or maybe you want to be able to leave and maybe relocate, move down to Florida. We'll be doing this podcast remotely. You're going to be up here because you're running your business, and I'm going to be in Florida on the beach somewhere because I'm done.
So
that won't happen.
So you got Wildwood for sale. Beautiful canal front home. I'll plug Tony's home here while we're on it. He's got the nicest house on water in St. Clair Shores. I mean, Tony does everything to the max. So every piece of molding, step crown is, what is it? Triple step, trim,
step, yeah.
base, the doors, everything. It's unbelievable.
I built it with an open checkbook, and it was probably the wrong thing to do. I didn't have the mindset. I just knew I was going to live here and die here, and that's what I thought.
Yeah,
was
but in
gonna
this
be
market, you sell it. It was the right thing to do, right? If you get that
Today,
if you get that custom price, which is what you're shooting for,
Yeah,
and you
correct.
should get here over the next 30 days or so.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. But at the end of the day, it's the only thing that's held its value. Same thing with my building. I bought the building low during the low times in 2008, and we did a renovation to it. And in the meantime, we owned the brokerage, so we paid our own rent to my company, my rental company. So my corporation that owned the real estate office paid the rent.
Yeah.
So it was a totally separate corporation, which we want to get into that too, the corporation setup. But and then in the meantime, it's continual income. So then when we sold the corporation, we had a tenant, which is great. So now they pay the rent, which they pay the building. So they're paying the building off, not me.
Right.
And I keep the split. So at the end of the day, I should be able to, be left with a beautiful retirement, from one building.
There's always going to be properties to flip, right? Everybody asks me, in this market is hard to flip in.
Yes.
Because values are so high and inventory is so low. And it seems it's weird because it seems like even the inventory, even on retail owner-occupant, homes is extremely, we're at a 2-month supply.
I don't even think it's a 2-month supply right now.
But the last I heard was...
I think I said those on the last podcast. It was almost 2 months. But the way we're looking at it now, it's even less than that. But if something is done the way you do a flip,
Yeah.
they're not lasting on the market more than a week.
Oh, man, if that.
Yeah.
If that. And just for the viewers, I mean, like when they say that there is a 2-month, a 6-month, a year supply of homes on the market, what that means is that if no new homes tomorrow were added to the market for sale and all the buyers that are in the buyer pool looking for a home identified and bought a home, it would only take 2 months, a 2-month time period, for there to be absolutely zero homes available at that time. In a normal economy, I think they said there's usually like a 6 to 8 month supply. Back when the recession hit and the housing market crashed and the bubble burst, whatever you want to call it, they said there was a 3 to 4 year supply of homes in
Correct.
the market. I mean, the banks obviously
They were
they were just unleashing and flooding the market with properties at 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar. So right now we have a 2-month, if even that, supply of homes, which means that there's just barely anything for people to look at.
Right. That's why you better have something in line if you're going to move from your own principal residence where you're living. You better have a place to go, because I've got a buddy of mine that sold his house in January, and we're still looking for a house for him. He's living in his parents' basement now.
I mean, that's always been the the $64,000 question. 64 million?
$64,000 question. Yeah, we've inflated since then, so it's a whole different. It's a whole different.
Is you cash out now, right? You sell at the top of the market. Everybody goes through it. Everybody looks at what their house now and their assets worth and says, "Hey, honey, we could sell. There's $50,000. We'd probably walk. We get a check for $50,000. We've never had that much in the bank account. That's fine. But then what are you going to do?
Right.
Like you said, necessities and basic necessities of life. We need shelter. We need a roof over our head. Then it's, do we rent for a couple years and wait for the next downturn in the market if there is one, or how do we identify that next? We're just going to pay top dollar for the next property, right?
And once again, if you pay top dollars for the next property, as long as you flip it quickly, you're not going to have to worry about the ups and downs of a stock market type effect.
There should be always, what I was getting to is there should be always properties to flip, right? There's always going to be estate sales. Unfortunately, there's always going to be, unfortunate people passing away. People are going to have their own properties and get tired of being landlords. People are going to lose their houses to foreclosures. People are going to lose their houses to taxes, which those are all things that we could get into and probably do an entire show on how to find properties. But there's a myriad of ways to find properties, right? I mean, if you want to get into
divorces, estates. Usually, the majority of the stuff that you find is someone who's passed away.
Yeah. I mean, the best bang for the buck usually is an off the market property where
somebody wants to close
fast.
fast.
Grandpa has passed away. Like I said, unfortunately, it happens. That's life. And the family just wants to liquidate and get rid of that asset. Whether it's emotionally, it's too hard for them to even walk back in the property, or the property's in such bad condition. I've actually had families where they're just embarrassed. They don't want people walking through the property, so they don't want to put it on the market. They don't want 40 people trampling through the home and commenting how nasty it is. They're a little embarrassed, and so they feel really comfortable with somebody like me who respects what they're going through, and you just make the connections. You put the word out there that you're looking. You tap into realtors that have these connections with all these families, and
Even Ian Mason, he's on Facebook.
Ian Mason's on Facebook. Hey, Ian.
We love you, Ian.
Good buddy of ours, hustling, hardworking realtor Ian Mason, a premier.
We're never.
property
We,
services.
I'm not jealous of.
We'll have
other
to bring him on the
realtors.
show.
We should bring him on the show.
should bring him. We
'Cause
love
he's
Ian.
He's a good investor.
He's good at finding investment properties. Yeah,
Right.
I shouldn't be giving away my my contacts here, but
That's okay.
Ian hustles, and he identifies. Even houses that are on the market but undervalued. So anybody that's looking to get in the flipping game, make a connection with some realtors and have them search the MLS and identify properties that have been on the market for either 100 days, 200 days, 300 days. They have the knowledge and the ability to do certain searches that you can't do, and identify properties that have been sitting there and that every other investor probably saw when it was overpriced and put on initially, and they forgot about.
Right.
So now circle back to those properties and go ahead and throw a lowball offer.
I think it's a little bit of consistency. It's really important because if
Yeah.
you don't stay on top of it, you're going to forget about it. Same thing with something that's going to foreclosure. How do you buy a house that's in foreclosure?
So there's a ton of information to get into on that. People probably
Yeah.
ask you all the
We
time,
should do
right?
a show-
How many people walk up to you and say, "I want to buy a foreclosure. I want to flip a foreclosure"?
Everybody wants to do a foreclosure, and it's like it's not that simple
Yeah, I mean
anymore.
that's a generic.
I used to have
kinda-
700 listings at one time.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, I want to buy a foreclosure. Sure, here's a list. There's
Yeah.
700 of them. Go,
Yeah, what you
go
want,
look
I'll give it
around
to
and
you.
don't call me anymore. Call somebody else or whatever.
right.
You didn't care. Now it's a whole different ballgame. I want to buy a foreclosure. I got one, and they got 30 people buying it.
Yeah.
But finding something that may be undervalued, maybe, I didn't think we talked about this before, redemption periods. When you lose a house to foreclosure, in the state of Michigan, you have a 6-month foreclosure process.
Well, that ties into, just to touch base on it until you go too far, this includes people hear sheriff's sale or auction.
Correct.
Right? This all ties into that.
That's what it goes into.
Maybe explain
right.
the process of somebody is in default on their mortgage. The bank then
Notifies them. They get 90 days worth of notifications.
eventually it goes to literally an auction on the front steps of the
Yep, on the front steps of the courthouse, and they sell the house. But there's called a redemption period where the buyer has time to get the money that he's behind and come and pay it off.
So it's a way to give the owner of a property, obviously,
Second
the
chance.
government is trying to keep people in their homes. I mean, the last thing you want for any country or government or economy is people losing their home. It's just not good,
Right.
all the way around.
So this redemption period is different in every state. Like in the state of California, it's 3 days. So once the property goes to foreclosure, somebody buys it, you can buy it back from them within 3 days in California.
That's it.
Yeah, or no, 24 hours in California. In New Jersey, it's 3 days. In the state of Michigan, 6 months.
6 months usually.
As long as the property has less than 50% equity. In Michigan, if the property has more than 50% equity, the redemption period is 12 months.
So then, how does that work? It goes to sheriff, and I know how it works, but we're trying to give
All
you
right,
guys
well,
the
say
knowledge.
you've got
so I'm interviewing.
say you've
Tony.
got a house.
So it goes to sheriff's sale, right?
Say you've got a house
And-
that's worth $100,000.
and it goes to sheriff's sale. An investor $70,000, and they win the bid.
They win the bid.
But there's 120 owed on a note, right? There's normally
A
a much
note.
higher amount owed on the note.
That's correct. And if that higher, well, let's say Chase has the mortgage and that mortgage is $120,000. Chase accepts what the sheriff's sale is
The highest bid.
for the payoff. So this guy comes to the table, he pays $70,000, he buys your $120,000 mortgage. The mortgage is wiped out. The guy buys the property. Chase can come after you for the rest of the money later on.
Yeah,
Chances are they don't. It doesn't make sense to chase people that have nothing. And then, so you've got now 6 months to pay the $70,000 to buy that house back from the guy.
Right.
Okay.
Which most people, it's hard to do, right? I mean, unless a Pelican's going to drop a bag of
Well, you couldn't make the lousy
$70,000,
payment.
right?
You're
Right.
not. If you can't make the payment, there's unless you got some rich uncle that died and left you $100,000 and here I'm going to give you your 70 and you're set and it's all done.
Right.
If they bought it for 40,000 and the property's worth 100, your redemption period is a little bit longer.
Right.
So knowing that redemption period can take longer, it gives you a little bit more time. But
It's tough for the investor. Number one, they're very competitive at the sheriff's at the auctions.
Everybody and their brother wants to be an investor.
everybody's. I mean, it takes a lot of legwork and a lot of research. And normally, the main guys that win all these the bids at the auctions, they have a little team put together.
Yep.
Where they've already drove around, they've done the research, they've looked at you can't get in the homes, but you can look at the big ticket items.
Correct.
You can do an exterior check and
Well,
drive by.
there's 5 or 6 guys there that are there every week, and
Right.
sometimes they get them, sometimes they don't.
But let's let people know your money's tied up now.
Your money's tied up during the
have
redemption
Let's for the hypothetical, you give that $70,000 now. You have to sit and wait. You're literally
You sit and wait for the redemption period to end if they don't redeem it earlier and give it to you. Then at the end of the redemption period, you get to do the dirty deed and evict the guy.
Right.
So now your 6 months is up. They got your money. The state, the county's got your money.
Yep.
And now you got to go for eviction.
Yeah.
So, okay, you can start evicting the day
You
after.
try to offer them cash for keys, but I mean, they're probably not going to leave.
Which, that's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
So now you got to evict a person. So now it's going to take you 2 weeks to get a court date, 30 days to evict.
Yeah, it's a 45 to 60 day process.
Right. And in the meantime, they can strip the house. We've seen them several times where they steal the cabinets, steal the appliances, and they strip your house. So you got to make sure you're buying it right. So no matter what happens.
Here's what I've done, though. I've gone the last week of that 6 month, and I've bought the people's redemption rights, which is totally legal to do.
Yes, you can buy it out.
So I'm sure that investor hates me that
Yes.
was sitting there twiddling his thumbs, waiting.
Yeah.
One more week, and we get that property.
Yeah, I'll give you $5,000. I want to redeem it.
$40,000, profit margin they saw on that. And I go in and I offer the person $5,000. They're going to get nothing next week.
That's correct.
Or here's $5,000 and sign over your redemption rights. And
all of a sudden you got a property under value. You need
yeah, that investor gets, so for people know, the investor gets his $70,000 back because I have to come up with the 70 plus whatever I'm buying the redemption rights for. They get their money back at a nominal interest rate of 5 or 6 or 7% or whatever it is.
Correct.
And that's what they made for 6 months, tying that amount of money up. So quite frankly, I don't like doing that.
No, you're doing 20%.
I could have worked that. I could have worked that
twice.
money twice almost.
Right.
So you got to have some big money and be very, very patient and be willing to know that at the last minute that property can get
Well, this is
redeemed.
all patience.
So, yeah.
This is why you got to keep your job, doing what you're doing while you're building this nest egg up.
Yep.
And then before you know it, you're generating $10,000-$15,000 a month in income.
It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
I mean, this is years and years. I tell everybody, real estate is slow money. It's discipline. You have to be patient. I used to be one of the most impatient people between dealing with the city and contractors and realtors and bankers and everything else. I've learned to be extremely patient.
It's like politics.
It's like politics.
Slow.
Very, very, very
But look
slow.
at Donald Trump. He may not be like Bill Gates, who made his money quicker, selling products, but he sold real estate, and it's a steady, huge.
And he leveraged.
Almost lost it all.
Hung in there, found a way to pay the debt.
Yeah.
You know?
So, then, listen. Today's show went by really, really quick.
Yeah, it did. Can't believe it's
already
almost
over.
noon.
But we've got a ton of stuff we want to talk about. Next time we would love to go and talk about how the contractors work, finding contractors.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is dealing with the contractors, finding them. How do you deal with them? How do you pay them? When to pay them?
And we're not just talking about Michigan. We're going to bring in some guests that are going to be from other states doing the same thing that we do. And telling us their stories and their secrets, because there's a lot of people coming in from other states coming into Michigan. But how about people going to Florida, going to Nevada, speculating, because those markets are a lot more volatile than we are over here. So we'd like to get into that. And in the meantime, if anybody out there is looking for a way to get rid of a home or got something available where Kevin could buy it.
Yeah, if you're
Kevin,
looking for
how do we
cash
get a hold
quick,
of you?
just call me, 586-855-4041. I'll make you a cash offer and close it within 5 days. If you or anybody you know has a property that they're just looking to get rid of that's in the family or whatnot, or a neighbor, or go to my Facebook page, Cash, the number 4, Your House Now. And if anybody out there is looking to sell their property, the market is extremely hot, or you have a house that you've identified that you know is for sale and want to buy, give Tony and his team a call. Tony, your number is?
586-773-4400, or our website, www.talktotony.com. And also, we'd love to hear your questions on the show. So if you go to our Facebook page, Fix It and Flip It, on Facebook, put a question down there. We'll answer your question online at the next podcast. It'd be great. So make sure you follow us down below on Facebook or on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. We are there. Fix It and Flip It. And thanks for listening, you guys.
Yeah, until next week.
Got it.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Take care.
You've been listening to Fix It and Flip It with Tony